welcome to Lesson 3 of Introduction to Comics. So today we're going to be talking about how to design for comics. Now, I have a background in visual development, which is design for animated features, and I brought a lot of the skills that I learned from that side of things into my comics work. My background definitely helped me to be able to conceptualize what my book was going to look like and to do all that work ahead of time. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to prep your design so then you can actually make your comic something that is achievable for you, cool to look at, and something that your readers are going to love. So, character design. Let's start there. Obviously, characters are going to be the biggest thing that you're going to be thinking about because they're the characters who are going to be acting, performing, being in your story. Relationships are all going to happen from the basis of characters. So the design of your characters are going to be really, really important. The background image here is actually the first lineup that I did for my characters from City of Secrets, and I wanted them to be different so then when you saw them they would be very identifiable, but I also wanted them to be easy enough for me to draw in my own style. So considerations for comics. What do we need to be thinking about as we're designing characters for comics? Well, first of all, they need to be repeatable. You're going to be drawing these over and over again. Presumably you will be drawing them. However, if you are the writer only, then someone else is going to have to be drawing them over and over again. There are a lot of things that are complicated to draw, like let's say a logo on a t-shirt. There are ways to get around that, like Photoshop and other different techniques, but it is something to keep in mind, because if you make something too difficult and it's hard to remember, oh, she had a badge on her left shoulder, then you can lose that prop very easily and you could be going back and forth with edits for forever, which totally happens to me, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad design. It's just something that you need to be aware of when you're designing these characters. Next thing, you have to make sure that these are fun to draw, that this is something that you are really enjoying, because if you really hate drawing bugs, you just can't stand spiders, and you create a character who has a spider face, then it's not fun to draw. And if something's not fun for you to draw, it's going to take you a long time to get through the project. And so you want to put as few barriers as possible between you and the completion of your comic. The next consideration is that it needs to be easy to turn. Being in VizDev, it's really fun because you get to design a character and really just do it once. If you can turn them around once, great. If you can do one, character expression sheet, great. But when you're doing comics, you actually have to be drawing these characters consistently and from all different angles, all different ways of being. So it's really important that you make sure that whatever you're drawing is actually easy to turn. For me, I actually mix up my left and right all the time, so when I have a character with an asymmetrical piece on their costume, I'm constantly accidentally flipping it the wrong way. So it's something to be considerate of, and for me, because of my dyslexia, it makes it more challenging if I have characters that are not symmetrical left to right. Understandable. This means basically that you don't want to have a character who's too complicated, so then if you're doing an unusual angle on them, that you can't tell what it is. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then the last consideration is you want to make sure that it's clear. And by clear, I mean, is the silhouette reading? Do they look different from the other characters? And while in animation, I think it's a lot easier for you to just go really far with, really pushed proportions. In comics, when you're doing that and you have to draw them over and over from a lot of different angles, it's much more difficult. So I tend to be a little conservative when I'm doing comics design work as opposed to film design work. So here are just some designs that I did for my comic City of Secrets. These are the initial designs. These are not the ones from the final, but this is how I pitched this book. I used this drawing style and these characters. I knew that this was going to be something that I would have enjoyed drawing, so I wanted to make sure that they all felt different but clear and gave the editor a good idea of what my story was going to look like. So set design is going to be the next thing that you're going to really want to consider doing. Sets in comics are a lot like when you design things for film, but again, same as what we were talking about with characters, when you're drawing comics, you have to draw them consistently over and over and over again. You're not just doing one design and handing it off to a modeler who's going to model it, and then, then it's out of your hands. Like, that's so much easier than working in comics. Like, comics, it's just so much work to make sure that everything is consistent. And in order to do that, I use every tool at my disposal, and I want to encourage all of you to do the same. I don't think that there's anything like cheating. Obviously, plagiarism is not okay, but there are a lot of techniques for you to be able to shortcut your way to keeping consistent design for your designs. That was a really weird way to say that. There is a shortcut way for you to be able to maintain consistency in all of your designs. Set design considerations for comics. A lot of these are going to be repeated from the character designs, but just to go over them again, we want to know how many sets we're going to draw. So this is something that you also have to do with your characters. You have to kind of take an inventory. Okay, like, how many characters am I going to have? How many sets am I going to have? Because if you want to tell a big story with a lot of different sets, the cool thing is that in comics, like, that is actually just as easy as doing one consistent set, right? This isn't 3D where you have to, like, build everything from scratch. You actually can just have a set for one panel. When I was doing the Shang-Chi book, there is a very cool looking safe, and although we see the outside of it quite a bit, we actually don't see the inside for more than one panel. So I didn't have to spend a ton of time designing it, but that is definitely something for you to consider. Like, how big of the scope in terms of designs are you going to have? My other book, Hungry Ghost, which is a very contemporary book, we had a lot fewer sets. And actually, I ended up building a 3D model for them because that kept things really consistent, and because it was one set used over and over again, that saved me a lot of time. Will it be fun to draw? It's kind of the same as the character design thing. Like, if you really, really hate drawing, like, I don't know, steampunk stuff with lots of gears and lots of, like, stuff going on, then don't write a story like that. This is the best part about writing your own comics. You get to decide what goes into your book, right? So, like, the story that we're telling is a medieval story with ruins in it, and, like, I know I love to draw that stuff. I know I love to draw, like, winding vines and, like, overgrowth and broken buildings, because you don't have to be too precious with it. But, like, I also know that I hate drawing cars, right? So, like, I am going to intentionally not put any cars in my story, but also, you want to make sure that whatever designs you are going to put in, like, honestly, Art Nouveau is challenging. Like, it's difficult to do consistently, but you can build a model. So there are definitely ways to get around any of these problems, but because you are writing the story too, you get to actually define what this thing is going to look like, all suited to your taste, which is, like, the most power you'll ever have. Tone, mood, and atmosphere, like, those are really important, because you want to, like, your story that you're telling, is it a dark story? Is it a lighthearted story? Is it cartoony? Is it for kids? That's going to really help define, like, how you're going to design this thing. Obviously, I wouldn't go for, like, a AAA, zombie video game look for a set that I was doing for a, like, middle grade, adventure story. So that's definitely something for you to think about. Like, okay, like, how pushed do I want these designs to be? How much caricature should I be putting into all of the props? And that's definitely a consideration as we go into set design. Research. So that's another thing that we really want to take care of too. If you have a time period piece, you want to make sure that you are gathering your research and you're doing everything you can to make sure that this thing feels authentic and it feels true. Obviously it's fiction, right? So, like, you can do whatever you want, but you want to be considerate to the time period that you're trying to set it in, or even if it's not a time period, like the fantastical setting of where you're putting it, so then at least you can buy yourself a little credibility when you're telling the story. Shot design is another thing that in comics is really important, because, again, what if you have a set that you only see for one panel? Then you don't actually need to figure out, like, what is in all the corners, what is a different angle. You're only going to use it once. So when there's times like that, sometimes I don't even design it ahead of time. Sometimes I'll be like, it's not a big deal. I will set it aside and design it in panel, because in panel is the only time you're ever going to see it. So those are all the considerations that I would take into account for design in comics. So here are just some more panels of pages of comics that I did. So this is all from City of Secrets, and again, you can see that this drawing of the safe is repeated a lot. And so like that's something that I knew I had to really nail in terms of design, because it was something that you see over and over again. It's going to be really iconic, and when you see it, you need to be able to recognize it. So that's something that I spent a lot of time working on. And then this last little panel down in the lower left-hand corner, that is just a shot of the street. That's one that I like literally just did one time. You never see the street ever again. It just needed the vibe, it needed the feel, and that's it. So like there's not a ton of drawings for that. It's just, okay, like I'm gonna get some reference and just like quickly put something out there. So like there's a big range of what we're doing in terms of set design. And now it's demo time. This class actually has very little demo, so this is going to be the one where I'm going to be showing you how I approach design, and we're going to be doing the designs for our medieval story. All right, so we're going to start out with some design work for the characters. That's the place I usually like to start because it really helps guide me into what I'm looking for in terms of level of stylization and things like that. Like that's really important for me to figure out at this point. So obviously I have no visuals so far, and one thing that I always recommend people to do is to do a lot of research. So let's just open up some Pinterest here, and let's look at some art. So let's look at some medieval art. Cool, I really like this. So let's create a new board. Oop, not to there. Wow. So I'm gonna create a new board, and we're gonna call this Schoolism. Create. And there we go. We got our first pin here. So the thing I like about it is like the ink drawing. I like how they're using the black to also indicate shadows and block out big forms here. I like the hatching. I think that looks really cool. So sometimes I actually like to scroll down to the more like this and see what else kind of pops up. I think this looks cool. I do really like this. Like the simplicity of this is really nice. This is cool. Really, what I'm looking for is just things that I'm reacting to. I do like this too. I'm not trying to, make sure that everything fits together so much as I am just looking for things that strike me as interesting. And I'm going to analyze these pieces afterwards. So we're going to spend a little time here, look at these drawings, and really see what we can pull from here that could be useful. This is really cool just as like decoration. Let's see. I think there's something cool about this like tarot card illustration. I like this. Ooh, I like this demon and this girl here. All right, let's back out and let's see what else we got in medieval illustrations. This is really cool. This cat is very funny. Maybe we could use it as some inspiration for the donkey. There's a lot of like pattern in here, like a lot of like flat pattern, which I think is very cool. This is cool. I love this. Interesting. So yeah, as you go around, just try your best to just find things that inspire you. You may have actually started this project with an illustration style in mind, or maybe like your own personal drawing style is very distinctive and you're not gonna, use too much reference in terms of the drawing, but we still can get a lot from here in terms of like motif, in terms of pattern making, things like that. All right, so let's kind of go with that for now. So let's go back into that board. All right, and now here's all of our reference that I've gathered. There's definitely a lot of cool stuff here. Interesting that let's try it with this, the first piece that I picked up. Like I want to do something kind of like that. Very simple and kind of like with an ink line. So keep that in mind as we come back into our drawing program. I'm using Clip Studio because there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it in for comics, and I'll show you some of that as well. So I always kind of draw with a blue pencil just because I want to be drawing characters with the underdrawing. Some people are really good at doing drawings without underdrawing, but that's not me. So, all right, he's gonna have like a chainmail shirt. I want him to feel a little like innocent. So maybe I'll just give him like dot eyes. I really like dot eyes as like a comics conceit. I think that it's very cool to express a lot of emotion with this very simple style. In Scott McCloud's book, he talks about how the more stylized the face is, the more likely it is for us to be able to connect to that character. We are able to project ourselves more into them because they are so simple. The more realistic a character gets, the less likely we can do that just because it looks too specific. So I'm going to try to use some dot eyes here, but I could also do a dot eye where like I do the top lid. That is also very effective, I think. He's going to be a clean-shaven young man because we want him to feel young. I've been drawing him with kind of like fluffy hair, so what if I gave him kind of like a Prince, I forgot what that haircut is called, but kind of like a medieval, he's kind of got like a bowl cut kind of thing. Makes him look really young, maybe a little androgynous. Maybe he's wearing like armor that's like way too big for him. He's got like a chainmail piece, or he's got like a breastplate, but not much else. Maybe because his dad was in the war. I like to kind of think about character like backstory and stuff as I'm sketching. This isn't necessarily anything that's going to be in the final drawing or in the final comic, but it does help me when it comes to like designing characters. I can actually like really think about, oh, what does it mean to be this character? What does it feel like to be them? And, you know, fill out their backstory a little bit, even if it's not something that we're going to see on the page. All right, so I did a little drawing of him without dot eyes just to kind of see how I felt about it. And I'm going to do pages and pages of this, basically. Like, this is how I find my characters. I just kind of keep drawing him. I thinking of his character and, like, what he's going to have to do in the comic. And, you know, I love the dot eyes, but I do kind of think that having the top lid is going to help just because then there's more directionality here. Like, we can really be like, oh, he's going to be more expressive that way. Maybe he's got like a really short cropped hair. He's got little bangs, little baby bangs. So I would kind of do this for a while. You know, I'd spend at least a full day doing this. Even for a short comic, it's worth it because like a lot of times your first instinct is going to be the most generic and the most knee-jerk reaction, which, you know, I think can be useful. But I also think that for doing unique styles and finding unique characters, you want to kind of dig a little deeper, and forcing yourself to do more drawing is going to get you there. I don't have a lot of time to do that today, so we're just gonna settle with these guys for now, and I'll just kind of show you how I continue to design their characters. And the other thing is, like, while you're drawing them, you can kind of see like what shapes keep coming up for you. Like, I keep drawing him with kind of a long face, and there's just something about that that feels right to me. So I'm going to take this brush pen because, like we said earlier, it feels like I want it to feel like this, right? So I'm going to come back here. I don't really like how that's the angle on that, so I'm going to pick a different brush pen. Okay, that's kind of cool. I like that it's like a round brush and it's got like a lot of variation in it, so we can get those like darks and lights. One thing I did over here, you'll notice, is for my ink layer, I made one of these that has this little box in it. That is a vector layer, and that's something that Clip Studio does, but it's very cool because let me just show you, right? So in a vector layer, this only works on vector layers. I'm going to take this and start, you know, doing some
tighter ink drawings just to like play with the stylization for this, right? So one of the things I liked about that was the hatching and the stylization. So I'm gonna try to do that with his like chainmail shirt. I want to just indicate it. I'm not gonna like draw it out in all its detail, because again, you want the character to feel like they fit with the stylization of his face, and he's like a very, very simple styled face. So I don't want to have like a ton of detail in it because I just think that's gonna look weird. All right, so one of the things I really like about doing this vector layer thing is, so I switched to the eraser here. And here you can do a thing where you click vector eraser, and you can actually erase up to the where two lines meet. So for example, here in his hair, you see these lines have kind of crossed over. I can just do this, and it'll clean it up exactly to that point. Like I don't have to be super, super precise with it. It is extremely cool and very, very useful. So I don't know, I just think it's very cool for comics, and if you're interested in trying out this program, like I highly recommend it. It's got a lot of really cool tools. All right, so let's just call this sketch done. I think he's pretty cute, you know, like I could do a comic about him drawn this way, and I think that it'll be fun to draw, and that's really one of the goals that I'm doing right here, right? I'm trying to figure out what is the style that I can actually achieve and that I'm going to like enjoy doing. So let's try it now with like his top lid. So now he's going to get a little bit more detail in him because he's, you know, that level of detail with just the eyelids, like that already helps bring it more into the like less stylized world. I still want kind of that like hatched look. This is the one where he is like wearing some armor. And I like that this ink pen is going to allow me to fill in some blacks because I do like that look where there's a lot of like heavy blacks in a comic. And I like to draw them at different angles too, because I think that it really helps me kind of feel out what the stylization is and like how much I like doing it in a certain stylization. All right, I'm going to erase that little bit. And now we have a perfectly formed line there. Which is pretty cool. See, look, I crossed over there and I can just tap it and it's gone. Perfect. Beautiful. Look, one more time. Oh, so cool. Get that there. And then you get just this really, really clean line. So if that's a vibe that you're into, like this is a really, really great app. Mike Mignola said that he chose to do Hellboy because he wanted to write his own story. So then he wouldn't have to draw anything he didn't want to draw, which is why Hellboy has just a lot of like ruins and like cool monsters, but not a lot of like mechanical stuff, because those are just the things that he likes to draw. Yeah, so that's pretty fun. Whenever I decide on a character, then I would probably have to take one of these guys and then do a lineup. So I would also go through and do the princess, but it's really important for you guys to like start sketching out these characters in relation to each other, because again, like these are characters who are going to have to perform together. So the most important are definitely going to be like the boy and the girl, right? So like let's sketch out the boy. I always kind of do this like a little blocky figure. Do the same thing for the girl. I want her to be like long and reedy, and he's also pretty thin, so like that's just kind of part of their characterization, I think. He has a long face. Maybe she has like a rounder face. You know, this is also like a good moment for you to start comparing your characters so that they feel different. Of course, with only 2 characters, I'm not as worried about it. But like when you're doing a larger cast for like a graphic novel, it is something to consider. So I want him to be like kind of top heavy. So he's going to have like this big box, either the chainmail or the or that piece of armor. I want her to feel very long, so she's going to have like a long dress. Something that feels a little alien. And he's going to have his like long skinny legs. So yeah, this is kind of where I would go with this. And just kind of keep practicing and figuring out all the characters, so then they all kind of sit together well. All right, so I can definitely get more in depth with this, but I think we need to move on. So we're going to table this for now, and for your own homework, you're going to want to design all your characters, and then you're also going to want to do your environments. So you could easily do your environments the same way, where you just start, you know, sketching out, you know, ideas, either like an orthographic view, or even if you want to just do it like in scene, you can be like, oh, well, I really want like this big shape in the front, and then I want it to feel like very tall or whatever, you know. So you can definitely do it that way. That's great. I'm not going to go really into that because I think that that's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to show you a little bit how to do something like this in SketchUp, because I think that that is very cool. Okay, so I know in this demo we are working on, there's only really one location, which is the ruins, and honestly, like doing it in SketchUp would not be the best idea. The reason why it doesn't really work is because that environment's pretty organic, because it's ruined, you know, the right angles and stuff don't really need to be something. So honestly, like I would not do it in a 3D program. But the reason why I have this open is because I do want to show you something pretty cool with how to build things in SketchUp and how to use them for comics. So first of all, we're going to just design a room, you know, just something so that way I can show you guys what it's like to use this program and how to use it for comics, because it is truly a lifesaver. So what I did here is I just used this tool, which is to draw a box. And then I just drew 2 more boxes because I want to have walls. And then you use this tool, which is called the push-pull tool. And you can just pull up walls. And you can have them to be a specific height if you wanted. See, right now this is 3.1 meters. I changed it to meters because if you want SketchUp and Blender to talk, they need meters. But if you want to use feet, like you can just do that in the settings. Oh my god, this thing is not fitting on my screen. All right. Okay. And so yeah, like here, it says 3.1 meters. Let's say we want it to be 5 meters. I just type in the number 5 and then there it goes, right? So because it's not too important to me right now, I'm just gonna build some walls. All right, so the great thing about SketchUp is that you can have access to their 3D warehouse. In their 3D warehouse, you can search for models that people have made, and then actually just use them straight into your model. So right now I'm building kind of a diorama, right? Like there is no windows here, which is not great. So let's build that too. First of all, let's get a sofa in here though. Huh, weird. I wonder why this isn't working. All right, here we go. I'm just gonna grab one of these. Sometimes you get like a weird connection because this is all online, and yeah. Let's just drop this. Ooh, my God, it's huge. Okay. Usually the great thing is that these are to scale, which was not super the case with that one. There you go. See, now this one is to scale, right? So it has this person here, so you always kind of know scale. You can build this yourself too if you wanted to build your own couch. Go for it, you know, why not? But you don't have to. If you find something close, like that's fine. So I use a lot of models that I also purchase from Acon 3D, which is a really good website for getting models for comics. I don't usually use them straight out of the box just because I don't want it to look like everyone else's models. But I use it for like a lot of the props, and I will use them as bases. So yeah, this is like a $39 model. Look, it looks great. Like it's really beautiful. I don't know that I would put like these couches in here, but like, you know, the structure itself is pretty cool. So a lot of times I will like purchase these and you have rights to be able to use them in comics. So it's a really great shortcut if you're looking for something like that. However, you could also build them yourselves or just get models from the 3D warehouse. I'm just gonna put some stuff in here. Let's do this TV stand and scale it up a little. It feels a little small. Oop. The scale tool, move tool. I would also recommend like doing some tutorials for SketchUp. There are a lot of them online, so you know, I think that is good. Rotate, so I want to like move this couch 90 degrees. See, like down here it says angle 85. I can just type in 90 and then it's gonna be perfect 90. Move. There we go. I'm gonna just draw a window here. So I just drew a box on there and then I'm just gonna use the push-pull tool to like push it out. And there we go. Got a window. So you can also search in here for elements of architectural stuff. So like if I click on this window button, we could like just grab a window like this, and it doesn't quite fit, right? Like that's not quite right. But you can do is you can make sure to turn it, say 90 degrees perfectly, move it to about where you want it to be. And you can go to your camera and look at standard view. So I want to look at the top because I just want to move it to where I want it to be. There we go. And then let's look at the camera, standard view, front. Perfect. Right, you can see that it doesn't quite fit, right? So we can scale this so that it'll fit. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is you can change the size of the window, like actually move the sides to make it fit. Either way, doesn't really matter. This is a pretty boring room right now. So I'm just going to show you guys a different model just because this is like so boring and it's just going to take me a while to build something interesting with it. So the thing about using 3D is I always say that the best way to do it is to decide what's going to take you longer. Is it going to take you longer to draw it, or is it going to take you longer to model it? And if it's going to take you longer to draw it, or if it's going to take you longer to model it, then draw it. All right, I'm going to go find a 3D model that is already finished. All right, so here's a model of a storefront that's got like a lot of cool plants in front of it. It's really interesting, right? So like there's the good windows, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. So I believe I downloaded this from the warehouse. So what you want to do is, you want to find your angle, and then what you can do is you can just take a screen cap, so File, Export, 2D graphic, and then you can just take a PNG screen cap of it, draw over it, and then that's fine, right? But here's something that I think is pretty cool. So you have styles here, right? So something you can do with styles is that you can actually, let me go into assorted styles. There's a lot of like different styles in here. So you can click on this and have it look kind of like a drawing, right? Like that's pretty cool. So if you wanted to just do this, and then if your art style matches this kind of sketchy look, then, it really does save you a lot of time. So let's look at sketchy edges, right? So like there's a lot of different models here. So this one has like a nice like brushy feel, but very like staccato. It kind of has like this architectural drawing feel, but there's a lot of stuff that disappeared, right? We lost the arches of the windows, we lost all the plants, like we lost a lot of stuff. So what you want to do to get that back is you're going to want to go into edit, and then here, this box here is going to be edges, right? So if you turn on profiles, that's going to like kind of find some more of them. Depth Q, you can kind of click these on and off and see if you like it. I think the depth Q is not helping me, so I'm gonna just leave it off. Extension is really interesting because extension is like how far beyond is it going to draw the line, right? It's like how this goes over that edge, and that's like a drawing thing, right? So you can make that like really long. And like if this matches how you draw, great. If it doesn't, then I would get rid of it, right? Halo is interesting. This works a little better on certain brushes and maybe not this one. I will just leave that one alone. But the most important thing is level of detail. So if we want to crank that up, we can see that all that stuff starts coming back, right? So we can kind of like decide exactly how much we want. And it's interesting because like, yes, this stroke is what's doing this look. These like kind of blocky little plants. And yeah, if you like that, then that works. I like this one a lot because it kind of looks like a pencil. And I like that it's like a wavy a little, which is cool. It makes it feel like more handmade. So again, you can kind of come over to here, turn on profile. I'm going to turn off depth Q, but then like crank up that level of detail and we get all that stuff back. So yeah, I would actually just do this and export it out and then just use it. Another really cool thing though is this extension called Composcene. Composcene does cost money, so this is something that you want to consider whether or not you want to do. But it is cool because like it can take all of these different layers and can actually create a different image that's just that, right? So like because this is so stylized, like we don't have a lot of this stuff, right? Like we don't have color, we don't have line, we have profile, we don't have depth. But let's go back to like the default, right? So then if you click Composcene and you, let's say we're just gonna do all of them, hit create. It's going to create this very interesting, these different scenes in here, right? So this is the default. This is just what it is from the screen, like how we were doing it earlier. Clay, this is like the model of it, right? So this is like the form shadows. Color, obviously straight flat color. Line, just the lines. Shadow, this is just the shadow. Alpha, this is, yeah, you have to pull back to see this, but yeah, this is the alpha clip for the whole thing. Clay, again, this is, actually, what's it? Oh no, there's two clays. I guess I did this once already, so you can already see that they're up here. Z depth is another one. Z depth is like, you know, things that are closer to you have more depth. Texture, which is really interesting if you want to use the texture that the models came with, but you don't have to. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing here. And if you wanted to take this into like Photoshop and paint it up, then this is Composcene is a really super useful plugin. But again, if we go back to this default, which is like the line that I like, this is like a cute view of it. So what you could do is, what I would do is just export it, 2D graphic, shop.jpg. I'm just put it in 2023. Go away. And just export. And then, you know, you still need to clean it up. Like, this isn't going to be perfect, right? But it gets you pretty far. So I really recommend that you like explore this app, see where it can help you with, especially if you have something that's like a really in-depth painting or something that like, you know, you're going to have to use a lot. Like, let's say that we had the same kind of comic scenario where we only have one setting. But if you could build it in a model, that would save you a ton of time. And when you're doing a graphic novel, anything you can do to save yourself time, totally worth it. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. If you have a scene that is taking place like in a more architectural space, check out SketchUp and try to use some of these tools. It's very, very cool. So your homework for this time is to take 3 characters and do designs of them. So I'm going to want to see a lot of sketches and a lot of turnarounds and figure out what your final design is going to be for your characters in your 8-page comic. The second part of your homework is that you're going to take 2 sets, at least 2, more if you can, like that would be great, and you're going to design those out. You can either use 3D or you can use 2D, whatever is more comfortable for you, as long as you understand what it is that you're doing and it works for your comic. All right, see you guys next time.